Here we're going to be looking at some notes about slope, and today we're going to be wondering or answering the question, can we find a slope between 2 points without graphing? Okay, so as you can see, there are a couple of examples to find a slope between 2 points, and we're going to try to do that without graphing today. If we think back and think of the word slope, you might remember that slope is actually just rise over run. And another way of saying that is our change in our y, which is our rise, over our change in our x. So I'm going to actually write that out. Change in y over change in x. So slope is rise over run, change in y over change over x. And actually another way to just write that is delta y over delta x. So this triangle is representing the change in. That's a bad triangle. So delta y over delta x. All of these things are saying the same thing. If anything, just try to remember rise over run. Okay? And in order to find the change between the y's and the change between the x values, what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to subtract the y's and the x's. So in other words, we are going to take the two y values and subtract them. That's going to be our change in our y, and our change in our x is going to be our two x values, and we're going to subtract them. So here we can write that slope is another way of saying y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 for 2 points when we have x1, y1, and x2, y2. And all that's saying is we need to be using, if we're using one coordinate pair, we have to subtract y from y and y from y. We can't go and mix these things up. So it's just saying 1 is from the first coordinate pair and 2 is from our second coordinate pair. And if we're going to subtract, we need to make sure that we are keeping the coordinate pairs in the right order. So here is our first example. Find a slope between 2, 5, and 4, 11. Well, the first thing we can do if we have 2 points is we can create a table. We could make a table. So our x and our y, and our x value is 2, our y value is 5. The next one is our x value is 4 and our y value is 11. So we've had tables like this before, and to find how it's changing, okay, we could find the change in the y over change in the x. That's our slope. So our y, if we look at our y, what's our change here? So it's, if we subtracted 11, 5 from 11, we would find the change, what the difference here is. And 11 minus 5 would be our change in our y. And if we subtracted 2 from 4, we'd get the difference here, our change here. So 4 minus 2. So our change in our y is 6, and our change in our x is 2. Okay? So that would be actually our slope. This will be our slope. And what we can do here is we can reduce 2 over 2 and get 3 over 1. So our slope is 3. All right. The next problem. Well, and here, let's draw a sketch to graph and confirm. So where would 2, 5 be? 2, 5 would be somewhere over here. 4 would be double that space. 11 would be a little bit over double that space. And that distance will be 3. So it makes sense. And we have our 6 and 2. Here is our second problem. First thing we can do is we could create a table, x, y. We have -4 as our x value and 6. And then we have 8 as our x value and -9. So here's our table. To find our change in our y, we can go ahead and subtract -9 and take away 6, so -6. And over here it's going to be 8 minus -4. -9 minus 6, what we're going to get is 15, -15. And at the bottom, 8 minus -4, that's actually 8 plus 4, we get 12. And we can reduce this by 3 over 3 and get 5 over 4. That will get our slope, -5 over 4, because it's a negative. Okay. Find the slope between -40, 65 and -28, 129. First thing we're going to do is create a table from these two. X, Y. And our first value is -40, 65. Second one is -28 and 129. Okay. So our slope, once again, is our change in our y over our change in our x. What we need to do is subtract the y's and the x. So we're going to subtract the y's. 129 minus 65. We're going to subtract our x's. -28 minus -40. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab my calculator. 129 minus 65 gets us 64. And our change in our y, and for the change in the x, it's going to be -28 minus -40. That's going to get us 12, positive 12. And we could go ahead and reduce this a couple of times. Let's reduce it by 2 over 2. We will get 32 over 6. We could reduce that again. 32 over 6 divided by 2 over 2. And we get 16 over 3. And since we can't reduce that, that will be our final answer. That's our slope. So summary, how can this be useful? Well, we can use this formula, okay? This formula, y minus y, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Basically, it's saying our change in our y and our change in our x. If we just take one of these values and subtract the other, we could take the other value and subtract the two. Okay? So how can this be useful? We can, or you can, get the slope without what? Graphing. And that saves us some time. And that's how you find a slope without graphing with 2 points.